Hello, coaches. Today, I want to take you through the exact steps that I take to structure a session. In my business, Be Your Purpose Coaching, I have a strong emphasis on working with coaches, with wellness practitioners, with spiritually led healers. So, the structuring of my sessions really emphasize bringing healing into somebody's world or into somebody's life. So you'll notice as I go through these steps that there's an emphasis again on that mind body connection, that metaphysical, bringing health and healing to those around you. So let's get started. Now, if you have been taught NLP, you would have gone down the path of exploring what solution do you provide for your clients. This is typically when we talk about niching down and knowing what product, what service that you provide for those who seek your services. For me, my business is all about being your purpose. And so that invites in people who are on that soul's journey, that quest to really understand the truth of who they are, their empathic gifts, their spiritual gifts, and what they can do to enhance that, to bring that to people's worlds. Whereas other coaches may be the anxiety coach, or they may be the money manifestation coach, or the fertility coach. Whatever your solution is, you want to be able to market that and bring that forward in your messaging to let people know that you have the solution for their problems. Knowing that you've been taught NLP, we know in your toolkit you have amazing skills, and yet, if you're a beginner, there may be that gap between what you do and new clients. And truth be told, that gap can feel quite overwhelming. So it does generally stop empaths and coaches from being confident, taking a risk, and putting themselves out there. Because again, that gap can be quite overwhelming. So in the training room, I would say, hands up from the beginning of your journey, who knows that gap really well? And of course, if you're still suffering with that, you know, the overwhelming challenge of attracting in clients that's really light you up, then I would tell you to do what you've been taught. Go get some coaching, go work on either like the scarcity mindset, the imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, fear of getting it wrong, worry about judgment, worrying about doubt or lack of clarity. Go and get some coaching on yourself, because I know that when I've worked with clients to resolve this, they come to me like, feeling so spirally in like, what can I do to get clients? We clear away the imposter syndrome in a session, and then boom, overnight, literally, they will be inundated with clients because no longer are they projecting this uncertainty. They're projecting that confidence is like, yep, I know what I'm doing. Let's go. So, if yes, there's a big part of marketing in your business, but so much of it comes back to your mindset and your energy. And I have plenty of resources on my website about how to attract in your ideal client. I would say to you, if you were in my training room, I would say to you, know your skills, know your outcome, know who you want to work with, know who you don't want to work with. And I'm going to cover that a little bit more later. And know your value, because you have invested in yourself to know NLP, you know it works, and it's like, awesome. Step into that confident future you as if it's now. And again, keep in mind that people have to earn the right to sit at your table. This is all about you being in charge of your business and how you want to operate, knowing your value and what service you provide. In our training room, I would go over, what are the qualities that you as the client wants in your coach? And we came up with this fantastic list about, the coach being understandable and approachable, sees the potential, adaptable, helping the client feel heard, understood, and validated, creating that safe space. So what you want for yourself when you seek out a coach is what I would encourage you to bring to your coaching sessions. Say yes to the green flag, yes, clients. When you're at the traffic lights, there's a green light, it's go, it's exciting. When you meet clients who project that kind of energy, absolutely say yes to it. But I also encourage you to check in with yourself on what are your deal breakers when it comes to the clients that you don't want to work with. Those red light kind of clients are like, yeah, I'm not the right fit for you. And it's not because you can't help them, but with integrity, you may not be the best fit. And so there's a win-win here by recommending or referring one of your fellow classmates who may actually specialize in that. They know the ins and outs, they know all the tools, fast and effective ways to resolve, who knows, anxiety or whatever it is. Recommend them to people that are more in that space rather than you sort of trying to push to make it work. You will find that the universe will reward you and bring you in two or three really great clients from having that lack of attachment to refer to other people. So, some red flags for me on my experience and who I won't work with. I was teaching this last night, and one of the things that's not on this list is if somebody projects any level of aggression at me, that's huge. I will say no to them. In fact, I will refund them. Like I'm, I'm not going to push and try to make it work if they're going to put the brakes on so aggressively. So that's one on my list that I need to add. But other things to keep in mind for no clients are when the client is not paying for it themselves, not paying for coaching themselves. Uh, like the wife who goes tells her husband to go and quit smoking, go see this fantastic person. Truth is, if he doesn't want to quit smoking or he doesn't want that help, he will take it out on the coach. It may be unconscious, but it will be quite difficult. I also know from my own experience, I worked with the boss of a company. She had fantastic results, and it was like, Claire, you need to see all my people. And the boss actually paid for coaching. And it was noticeable that when somebody was doing it there out of obligation, that it was not the flow, the excitement didn't come in for either of us. I mean, the results were great, but yeah, it was too much work. So work with clients who are paying it for themselves, invested, willing, and ready. Now, I won't work with clients who, with their pre coaching questionnaire, present with a sense of pride to have that problem. I don't know why, but there's like this significance in having the problem that no one can fix, and that's something that's part of their identity, and they're not willing and ready to let go of it. So I was like, I'm not going to add to your your trophy shelf of not being able to resolve this. I will not work with clients who noticeably put responsibility on me to fix them. That just feels yuck. So it's a collaboration. Working with a client, it is a co-creation for like walking together on that journey to create that goal. Doesn't mean that I'm there to fix them and resolve things. The responsibility is on the client, and they need to be ready to face some uncomfortable things to make the shift. Otherwise, they would just be doing it. I won't work with people with severe mental health. That's out of integrity and respect that there's other systems and other professionals who are more trauma based, who know how to work with heavy duty mental illness. So that's something that is a boundary for me. And I won't work with clients who start to tell me how much it's going to cost them to get coaching and list out all of the excuses and justifications. I had this once where it was like, awesome, I'm willing and ready to coach you, help you build your business, attract in your ideal client, which we talked about. That meant more money in the bank. And yet the paying for coaching to them meant that they couldn't afford groceries and it was going to be taking food out of the mouths of their children, blah, 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 blah. And it's sort of like, whoa, okay, you are not ready. You are not ready. So yeah, that was noticeable. It was like, we're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt if the red flags are so loud at the beginning. Now, truth be told, if you are attracting in clients like this over and over again, then you need to look at your own belief system and your own energy on why you keep attracting in no clients. This should be effortless. And yes, at the beginning of your coaching journey, being the coach, anything that's left unresolved within you, let's say that you have some level of resentment with somebody in the family, you'll notice that the universe will bring in, 5, 10 clients who also present with resentment towards family or whatever it is. As like, I now have to heal it, help somebody else heal it in them. So now I have to heal it in myself. So take notice of that because at the beginning of the coaching, career is sort of like, what have I got myself into? But you got the tools. Grab a co-coach and start to shift those things. So lifting the energy, and your intuition is saying yes to working with a client, and they're saying yes to, I trust you, let's book in a session. That is such a beautiful moment with that honor and the integrity to be able to work alongside somebody to unpack their vulnerabilities to then be the best versions of themselves. So it's like, it's a really exciting moment. But as a first time coach, it can feel like untangling spaghetti is sort of like, oh my gosh, now where do I start? I've got this huge manual of NLP processes and meta models and timelines and parts and all of these things. Where do I start? Well, that's what we're going to cover today. For me, I like to be a little bit playful in my way of teaching NLP. I like Richard Bandler's approach that anybody who's taking their problems too seriously, makes the problems a lot heavier for themselves. So I like to bring the lightheartedness to my trainings and to my coaching sessions. And my metaphor for doing a whole coaching session or a breakthrough is just like being on that Ferris wheel. We get on, we go, we do all the things, and then we come back to this reality and, you know, not wish for the best, but notice that things are now changed. So, chunked up, you want to build rapport. You want to know what is their present state. So, in other words, what they don't want. You want to know their desired state, what they do want. You need to check in. What resources do they need? How will they know when they have that desired state? And only then do you actually do a process. We can do timeline parts, anchors, whatever it is. And then at the end, you can summarize, you can give a task. Now, I've known coaches who will do this over 2 or 3 sessions. What is the problem? Let's unpack that. Let's get some clarity. And then they invest in a lot of time to really understand what is it that the client wants. So whether you work your sessions to do rapid coaching and you can do all of this in like 45 minutes, or you do it more like I do over 90 minutes to 2 hours, or you want to do this over 2 or 3 sessions, that's up to you in the way that you structure your business. So again, first step is to get rapport with the client. And then again, you want to check in, what is their present state? Once you know what the problem is, only then will you move into what is the desired state. What are the resources they need? We're not going to assume that just changing their mindset means that suddenly they understand how to, do that career or do that job. They may need to build in that desired state of confidence to then go and learn a new tool. And then we need to check in, how will they know when they've got that? And that's more evidence procedure in recognizing that the coach can also see, feel, understand that what they want, there'll be evidence in the 3D that they've got what they wanted. And then you can start to do the process, a summarize and task. So let's chunk down now. Let's go into the detail of what this looks like. So what is their present problem? Oh, sorry, what is their present state? What's the problem? This is where I will ask questions like, what is the problem? How long have you had the problem for? What does it mean to them? Like what does it mean to have that problem? Like, are they judging themselves? How do they know they have a problem? Which can be quite confronting, that question. Like, well, duh, like it's I sound like a teenager. But it's like, well, how do you actually know you've got this problem? Like, what's showing up for you? What are the behaviors that are keeping you from being stuck? And how will you know the problem is gone? Trying to think on the spot here about a client who's wanting to get out of her 9 to 5 job and start her own NLP coaching business. And so, like, well, what is the problem? Well, the problem is that resentment being at work. I feel heavy. I'm getting headaches. How long have you had the problem for? Oh, well, since this new boss came on board. What does it mean for you to have that resentment? It's like, well, it means that I'm not able to show up for work and be my best self. There's this energy that's getting in the way. How will you know that the problem is gone? And so they may say something like, well, because my energy is feeling great, I've now being more productive. I feel confident stepping into my NLP coaching business. And yeah, no more headaches, no more back pain. When a client outlines what is the present state, what they don't want, you need to also listen out for other clues. The issue is rarely what they think is the issue. So, like in that quick example, that client that wants to move from her current job into a moving from her current job, working in a hospital, to now owning her own NLP coaching business, we're looking out for the other clues that the hospital system has changed, the expectations have changed since she first started, that it's not working for her family balance and things like that. So you're looking for other things that they haven't mentioned. Your role as the coach is to dive into the meta model, to dive into strategy elicitation, and ask them questions that they haven't asked themselves. Typical friendships, like they'll mirror back and they'll, oh gosh, that sounds awful. Your job as a coach is not to do those typical friendly questions. It's to get them to work out where is the problem and what is not the problem. Where is the threshold of that problem, so that they can start to work out that we're not working on this huge problem. We're actually working on this piece, like that resentment, as I said earlier, or this piece that there's a lack of fulfillment, whatever it is, for the client. And so you want to look out for also what they're deleting, distorting, and generalizing. Obviously, there's a piece here that they're not allowing themselves to recognize that's keeping them stuck. So once you've got all of those things, only then would you move to step 3. And truth be told, I could spend a good 15, 20 minutes just on what is their problem before I'll move on to what they want. Oh, another one here. Also, listen out for how quickly they answer the questions. Do they answer the questions quickly with certainty, or is there a delay or hesitation? I know from my own experience that if I've got a coaching session booked, I too will go over the problems in my head leading up to that to that session, right? And so I know that I need that coach to give me the time to vent, to let it all out. Don't ask me too many detailed questions, like let me vent and now let's unpack what's going on. And I often find that happens with my clients too. It's like, Claire, okay, let me ask you some questions. Let me leapfrog around. Is it this? Is it that? How's the problem show up? So on and so forth. Now, if they hesitate to answer, I'm also going to inquire in on the hesitation, why that was difficult for them to access the answer. So yeah, play with all the tools in the toolkit with this. Remember the meta model? This is those questions about how, what, when, where, who specifically, according to whom, what do you mean by that, compared to what, how do you know, what stops you, what would happen if you could, how do you stop yourself, what would happen if you did, what would happen if you didn't, tell me more. So really inquiring again where the boundaries are of their problem. And again, listen out at this problem state if they are at cause or effect. If they're at effect, then we want to check in who's the authority, what's going on, why are they handing over their power. And then you also need to be able to determine if the client is willing to do anything to move through that discomfort and be able to be back at cause so that they feel more empowered to make the choices that they want. Okay, now we're at step 3. Okay, so what is the desired state? What do they want? And you can ask them that. What do you want? What state do you need to be in to have that? When you have that, what will you accomplish? What behavior will you do? What does it mean to have that? What belief do you have to be able to step into that empowered version of yourself? So, like that client example, to step into that successful future you as that NLP coach, what does it look like? Who are you serving? How are you serving your clients? Is it online? Is it in person? What's going on here for you to step into that? And you'll soon recognize that there may be some resistance, that the part of them still wanting to hold on to the hospital job for security And so you'll start to recognize what's holding them back. Where do they put their brakes on? What's the resistance? What's the scarcity? What's the limitation? From asking what they want. Sounds a bit backwards, right? So I would ask, what do you want? What tells you that you don't have that? How will you know when you have that? What will you see, feel, experience when you've got what you want? And how will that be beneficial? So again, like that client example, like what will you see in your husband's eyes? What will you feel from your children? What experiences will you have when you've got this freedom to be the boss and own your own business? What will you be doing? The reason that we're doing these types of questions so early on is that if you end up doing timeline, you want to know from the beginning, what is the future state? If you're going to future pace with somebody, what's important to them? What are you going to install in their future time stream that's magnetic, that they want to move towards? Because I can make all sorts of assumptions and mind reads about that. But truth be told, it's a lot more powerful when it comes from the client. And it's just taking that note and then noticing when you get to the other end with the future pace, see the sparkle in your husband's eyes, feel those hugs and the embrace from your children. What else do you notice here in the future state? And yeah, what do you have to believe about yourself to now have this? Now, you want to quickly check in. We don't want to just make assumptions that doing timeline will completely resolve and dissolve all of their problems. They may actually need some more skills. They may need to bring in new beliefs about themselves, new attitudes. What state do they need to have the thing that they want? So just don't just assume that, they've got all the resources that they need to just step into the thing that they want. They may actually have to go do that course or read that book or do the thing, speak to that person, get a mentor to be able to accomplish that. And then again, how will they know they have that desired state? So, what will life be like when they move into that future version of themselves? What is that motivation? What's it like without being stuck? What are the new opportunities available? So if I was working with the client who was wanting to attract in more clients, then I don't say it and I don't want them to be waffly or like, well, I'll be in my flow state and I will feel really fantastic that people are coming to me. No, 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 no. We want the 3D, put it in a wheelbarrow. Like I can either see your diary full of paying clients, or I can see your bank account, there's plenty more money. Not that the coach is going to do this, but it's that convincing strategy for the client to know, right, that's actually what we're aiming for, not that vague, abstract stuff. We're actually looking for concrete evidence that things have shifted. And then you can start trusting your intuition as the coach to do the processes. So whether that's things like parts integration, timeline, anchors, grow model, strategy work, fast phobia, now it's up to you as the coach to trust your intuition and to use the process that feels right for you. Some people would say, well, what if that's not the right process? It doesn't matter. At this stage, once you've done a level of change work, that change can bring for the ahas in 3 days, next week, in a month. Something will shift. And the fact that you're helping that client create change is a good thing. So I know that, like in the hypnotherapy world, if somebody came in on their second session and said, yeah, no, that didn't work, it didn't make a difference, it's like, great, now we know what doesn't work. We can now pivot and try these other tools. So you still want to reinforce that the change work is a good thing. And then you as the coach can collaborate the change. You can integrate the new changes. So to summarize, we've covered off so much in this session. You've created such fantastic momentum, connecting with that new identity. What are the strategies that you need to have to maintain that level of success? Getting even the client to convince you, the coach, on what they're going to do to resist all of the family backlash, because the family and the world is going to expect them to still be that problematic version of themselves, or that having those old patterns. So you need to be able to set things up so that instead of people bringing in doubt that things may not have changed. It's like, what are they going to do to show their family, friends, themselves that change has occurred? Very important to make sure that that client feels empowered to really own the amazing changes that have just occurred for them. And then lastly on that, it's up to you as the coach if you give your clients tasking. If you're somebody who's doing like one-off sessions, then maybe they don't need tasking because they won't be seeing you again. Or if you sell your coaching in packages, then tasking is incredibly important to be able to continue that momentum, to prove to themselves things are changing, and for them to be aware of what is changing. So yes, it's definitely worth adding home play if you are somebody who is working with clients on an ongoing basis. So asking yourself, what task can I give this person to assist them on the journey? If they've been people pleasers, then what can you give them so that they take a moment to serve themselves first before putting the other person's needs ahead of their own? Or is it journaling? Or is it creating a vision wall? Or is it doing audios that you've already created? Questionnaires, self inquiry, what is it that they can do? And again, if you give people tasks and they don't complete them consistently, what do you do? Well, that's absolutely up to you as the coach because some coaches will not allow their clients to book in their next session until they have completed that tasking. But and that some people will have that conversation about why there's this inability to do the work. Or if it's an ongoing problem, you can resign the client if you feel like you're the one doing all the work. They're sort of expecting you to fix all the things, and yet between sessions, they're not helping themselves make the change. Again, if you're attracting clients who aren't doing the work, then check in with yourself what's going on with your beliefs. So, one more round around the Ferris wheel here. Let's say that we've got a client who's coming to you with anger. And for me, anger is a secondary emotion. It always follows powerlessness. You know, when you do a strategy elicitation and you say, okay, well, just before the anger, what did you feel? You will notice that there'll be some level of boundaries violation or some level of powerlessness, a lack of resources. So there's the powerlessness that tends to trigger the anger. So if you were working with anger, aka powerlessness, first you want to obviously build rapport. You want to check in what's their present state, what they don't want. And that client obviously will say, well, I'm angry. At that point in time, you can do a strategy elicitation. You can use the meta model to work out how do they do anger? How is that anger serving them? What's going on with that lack of confidence in just asserting who they are without reacting so badly. We can do all of those things at that beginning. Then the next piece there is the desired state. So if you don't want to be angry, what do you want to have or do or be instead? And them answering something like not angry is not the answer. And we are not moving forward with the coaching session on that answer. You want to make sure that they've been able to articulate what they do want. I want to feel confident. I want to feel at ease. I want to feel comfortable. So you want to make sure that you are now starting to put in the suggestions that we're moving towards something that's a lot more healthier and in alignment to what they want. Next thing, you want to check in what resources do they need. So, what's stopping them from actually just having that confidence or being at ease? Is there a lack of confidence with having that conversation with the boss or the husband or like, what is going on here that's actually stopping them from having what they want? And then, of course, we check in how will they know that they've got that desired state? So a good answer there would be more energy, more productive, getting XYZ done. And so once you know if they're not going to be angry, they're going to feel confident, what's the evidence to say that they're being more confident? Have they booked in that trip? Have they resigned from their job? Have they signed up for that new training course? What is it that they will see, feel, hear, and have when they've got what they want? And then and only then will you do a process, timeline, parts integration, anchors. so that when you get to the other end of that, there's a quick summary and some tasking so that the client can themselves feel satisfied that they can hear back from you what's just happened and to get that summary of like, wow, what's possible. Make sure that you don't trigger back their original problem because a lot of clients will have healing amnesia at this point. So this is where they sort of, you've done such a great job as a coach that they can't actually remember the problem. They can't tap into the problem. So don't bring it up. You want to make sure that it's like, wow, we have done so much work here today. That change work is amazing. You're going to experience a level of integration, and hopefully that feels a lot lighter for you once you've moved through to the other side of that. And so it's really reinforcing that they've done a great job within this session, and that you, as the coach, would only expect them to feel lighter, more confident. But of course, they're welcome to get in touch with you if there is that problem or, feeling challenged, because of course, as a coach, you can follow up with them in a few days. How are you going? How does that integration? You were putting so much fuel on the problem that now there's that freedom. There's going to be time for your body to really, yeah, integrate this new change. So yeah, that would be one session or a couple of sessions for anger. But of course, you need to do what's important to you. And I have a whole lot of resources about how to structure a session online. Now, as I said right at the beginning, I like to work with wellness professionals, spiritual healers, energy workers. So I want to focus in and narrow in now, how does NLP work to resolve health issues? And for this one, I'm going to demonstrate with skin problems. Now, we know that, we've got your thoughts generate your emotions generate the body's response. And depending on the meaning that you've put to that, will depend on if it's going to give you more energy or deplete you and create health problems. So let's explore how you can use NLP to generate healing with somebody. Having a look at skin as the example here, I want you to know that skin is the barrier between the person and the outside world. So the skin is the physical boundary that keeps somebody safe, right? When the skin comes out in a rash or a cold sore or pimples, it is the body's way of communicating and showing to those around you that you are struggling, there's deep insecurities here. And it's this unconscious message to people around you to either back off, be gentle with me, I'm vulnerable. And so the body is always communicating. If you've come out of alignment, come out of that confidence empowered state, and there's that weak link in the chain, your immune system is going to show that, demonstrate that you've come out of alignment. And of course, with NLP, we can get somebody to come back into alignment. But the question is, how do we approach this within a coaching session? And so we know from the filters of the mind that somebody will experience an external event. They delete, distort, and generalize. That experience goes through the filters of their mind, and then that will generate the outcome that they get. Very chunked up, very quick. But let's say that we've got a child or a little one who has experienced something tense in the external world, like their parents arguing or getting loud or something like that. And so in that moment, they have seen and sensed and taken in that the outside world can be quite tense. And so whether they show and demonstrate that to the parents is another thing, but their unconscious mind has taken in that message that the outside world can be quite dangerous or not safe or uncomfortable. From there, the mind will delete and distort and generalize the ability for that child to say no or to be heard, or to be able to calm things down. So in that moment, those thoughts of like, I'm now trapped to that tense environment, I don't have the resources to get my body to feel calm. And so we're already starting to generate that stress in a nanosecond. From there, the mind will put a meaning to that situation and will create a belief like, I can't express my needs. It's not safe to be with people that I rely on. I can't get my needs met, like I'm not supported. And so in that nanosecond, they've seen and experienced that tension from parents or caregivers. They've deleted, distorted, and generalized how to come back to safety and calm. They've now created a limiting belief that they're not safe or they can't get their needs met. And in this, again, that nanosecond, the body will start to generate that stress response. And so in the future, any time that they think about getting their needs met or how they function in the external environment, then we activate this neural network. We activate the problems of, when I put myself first, when I get my needs met, it comes with conditions, it comes with tension. So we're already generating stress. It may not be at the point of showing the rash or showing the skin problem, but this is how the stress response is starting to generate, yeah, dysregulation in the immune system. And then so from there, this is if that continues, the physical body will show the caregivers, I am not coping, be gentle with me, please consider my needs. And you know that moment when child has chicken pox or a rash, it's like the attention stops being on the tension of the parents, and it's the caring of the child generally. And so what happens then is now we're creating another belief that the more and more and more I have a problem, the more things calm down. So maybe having the skin problem is actually the solution. So the brain does very interesting things to be able to get things to come back to calm and stable. Of course, as an adult, this can this this neural pathway, this loop, can show up later in life with eczema or pimples or other cold sores or other things. Anytime that you haven't, that you're out in the external world and that you feel triggered by tension, then the body says, oh, okay, I know how to get out of this. Last time I created a rash and people either backed off or I got my needs met. So it's quite interesting. And this is just one example. I could have chosen sore throats, back problems, you name it, headaches. But this one here is the quick example of the skin. So, as a coach, somebody who's NLP trained, we can now make changes to the way that they've deleted, distorted, and generalized their access to safety. You are no longer three. We can now go do timeline to when you made the limiting decision that you're not safe in this world, and we can actually bring in the learnings that you are safe. We can, of course, do work on the memories, the language that they said to themselves, the meta programs, which is master practitioner, and their beliefs. We can do change work here on the meaning that they put to that experience. So instead of spiraling into unconscious stories of why they're not safe, we can interrupt that strategy and bring in a new strategy so that their skin is now comfortable to be in this world, head held high, feeling confident in the world, getting my needs met. I'm no longer three. I can now access my own resources. And then the stress response isn't happening in the body. And so the skin will get that message like, oh, cool, I'm cool, calm, and collected. So yeah, for me, this is how I work with the metaphysical, with NLP, the power of the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, the body's response, the health problems. We can interrupt at any part of that chain, and you will see results quite quickly if you've been able to get to the root cause of the chain that created the problem. So this is why in my NLP world, that if I've got a client who's coming to me with ongoing migraines, skin problems, I'm looking to do a timeline on anger. Anytime someone's coming to me with low self-worth or depression, I'm looking at the sadness on timeline. Anyone coming to me with gut problems, diaphragm problems, knee problems, I'm looking at the fear in the way that the body's putting the brakes on and that inability to move forward. So again, timeline with fear. Hurt, I'm looking at back problems, sleep issues. Again, we're going to go do timeline. Guilt's an interesting one because guilt will like put on a grip to that client's ability to bring in the healing. Guilt is something that is generated by a values violation. You say to yourself, gosh, if only I knew back then. Well, we can use timeline to bring those messages back then so that they're operating from the perspective of what was right for them instead of what was right for other people, bending who they were to accommodate other people's needs. So guilt will show up in female problems, burnout, so on and so forth. And then conflict will show up in people's hair loss, their bowels, cancer, eyes. This is very, 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 very generalized in the NLP world, but you can use this within an NLP session, and they may have their doctor, their Chinese medicine person, their kinesiologist also working with them on the physical world, but we're working on it within the mind so it stops creating that spiral. And again, within the metaphysical, I know this stuff off by heart. So for clients coming to me with back problems, then I'm looking at, the lack of support in their world, or when did they make the decision that support's not trustworthy, or they couldn't delegate. If somebody coming to me with a feet problem, the feet carry us forward on that soul's journey. So what's going on here that they can't navigate their way moving forward? Why has the unconscious mind put the brakes on, and that it's safer to be here small in the familiar compared to taking that risk and doing something new? So this is the way that I use NLP to be able to create healing in clients' world. And then one more very big sidestep on what I know to be true about the neural pathways. Remember this from your NLP practitioner training, talking about the neural pathways? Well, let's just touch momentarily on the science around this. Your brain is composed of neurons and synapses. So the neurons are the network of the roads in your brain, and the synapses are those intersections. So every experience that you have, listening to this, going for a drive, baking a cake, every experience that you have is due to the roads that you naturally travel. As an example, some of those roads that you travel on a daily basis can be worn out and give you an emotionally bumpy ride. So it's these limiting beliefs, the doubt, the sabotage, the procrastination. You are traveling on that road of doubt and it's quite bumpy. And it's like, yeah, I do doubt quite well. But of course, with NLP, we can put the client back in the driver's seat to create that smooth and enjoyable ride. So we can do this by navigating a new, more efficient and effective path within their mind so that the road outside of them is a lot easier to drive. So this is like going in and clearing the limiting decision and clearing the limiting emotion so that they're not operating and making decisions based on scarcity. They're now basing those decisions on empowered confidence. So taking this one step deeper, the programming that you have in place right now, be it empowering like a fancy new app on your phone or an outdated old computer, whatever programming that you currently have in place is going to operate in a familiar and predictable way. So if you are somebody who does anxiety well and it's that old outdated computer, it's just going to continue to operate and generate that anxiety until you actually shift and take notice. How do you do anxiety? How is that a problem for you? What do you want instead? So until you actually put attention on that programming of anxiety, it will continue to loop and function in its predictable way. So again, we know how the mind works, that there's that stimulus from the outside world. So you're on the road, there's that stimulus. You are taking in all of that information through pictures, sounds, feeling, taste, smells. And so that information on the road there, just as a metaphor, that information you're sensing is received, and then the neural network, your programming, will accord accordingly. So if you've had experiences over and over again of not feeling safe on the road, then the messages that you're going to bring up, that trigger is like, yeah, I am not safe. Or if you're somebody who feels completely alive on the road, music up, like this is the best thing ever, drive for hours and hours, then this is the messages that you're going to be telling yourself from that stimulus. So I'm going to go a little bit sciencey, bear with me. But if we focus on those neural pathways, we know, and the scientists have proven this, that being on the steering wheel of your own life, there's this electrical pulse of information that will travel from the stimulus, from the pictures, from the sounds, from the feelings that you get. That outside world is creating that electrical pulse for you to be able to make sense of what you're experiencing. And it's that infinite neural pathways for that information to travel. When we look at how that information travels with that electrical pulse, we know that there's that electrical charge from one neuron to another, that neural pathway. Between each neuron, between each neural pathway, there is that chemical that's already there. That's what helps the juice from getting the messages from the outside world in. And the question is, well, why is that important to know? Because this is the connection from the mind, body, soul connection. This is how we take in our reality outside of us, and then what the meaning that we're putting to it. It's all based on the active chemicals and the neurotransmitters that you've already got programmed in your body and your mind. The medical field discovered that when somebody is depressed, there is that certain chemical in their body. And as NLP people, when we question this, I want you to think about, is the chemical causing the depression, or is the depression causing the chemical? Because we know with NLP, when someone is in an environment that they believe is causing them suffering, and they keep telling themselves that, like, this is awful, I can't stand this, the resentment starting to build, then the body is going to receive that stimulus and respond accordingly with the neurotransmitters present. It's going to just bathe your whole body in that stressful chemicals. And now it's just reinforcing again over and over that this is a moment of suffering. So, questioning that again, is it possible then to have the chemical present without having the thought pattern? So, as I said really early with that client who wants to quit her 9 to 5 hospital kind of job, she walks in the doors, that message, she says, oh my gosh, here again, I hate this. Immediately, she's creating that stress response. And I'm wondering, from your point of view, can you really understand that if we change the meaning that she's putting to that, walking in the door, saying something different to herself, that the body will not respond with that stressful chemical. In fact, it will do something different. So one will go here. Your neurons connect together with those synapses. They communicate using that chemical signal to know, known as the neurotransmitters. So all of your senses and everything that you experience in life are just neurons firing, like that pulse of electrical signal. Information is relayed across the synapses, and yeah, it gives you the experience that you are having. So if you are stressed, it'll release the stress chemical, and if you're neutral, it'll just release the neutral chemical. You have the choice for the meaning that you're putting to your experience on how your body will respond. The thoughts, the mental thoughts are that powerful. So my point of view with NLP, and I'm very quickly going to wrap this up, but my point of view with NLP is that you can work through somebody's depression quite quickly. How do they do depression? What are they saying to themselves? What's the environment doing to create the meaning that they're experiencing? And so you can actually clear somebody's depression in a couple of sessions, but they may still be identifying to wanting to be the depressed person. It gives them something, and they can hold on to the identity. But the truth is, you can actually resolve and dissolve the depression. I've known a lot of coaches to do this. What was it? Resolve depression in a session or something like that. Um, Now, some people may say, well, okay, we go and resolve that. Then I'm still feeling quite sad or miserable in my world. Well, that's a different problem. We've been able to resolve the depression or the anxiety about being on the road. Now we may need to resolve the anxiety in who it means to become this new person. But you will be able to resolve a layer, an aspect of what's going on for them in a session or in a breakthrough. Keep in mind, if you're working in the wellness industry, if you are specifically working to resolve depression, I want to quickly sidestep. Depression, when you're working on that with clients, is all about suppressing their truth. What they've done is they've been trying on all of these different masks. If I have the white hat, if I have the white picket fence in the house and the 2 kids and a dog and the 9 to 5 job, then maybe I will get that satisfaction. Like, they try on other people's shoulds to have that sense of fulfillment. And what happens with depression is the body just gets exhausted from wearing that mask, and it just wants to go to that deep rest and that sleep and that escapism from being the person that they're not being, like they're not born to be, like they're not listening to their intuition. So with depression, what you can do is resolve and dissolve the need to put the authority in other people's hands, what they should do, and come back to their inner truth very quickly. When they start to align their life to their own inner guidance, then the depression will naturally start to resolve. But if you're working with a client who's got depression, you need to keep in mind that they may be on an antidepressant, and this is not your job as a medical person to know this or to work around it, but it is that care for your client, that duty of care to let them know that as we start to work through these challenges, they may need to work with their doctor to lessen their medication or make adjustments to their medication. Again, that's not up for you to know. NLP is not regulated. There's no rules around this. But I do know that if somebody's taking an antidepressant and that's generating the chemicals in their body, then doing this work where their body starts to create the chemicals for them that was previously absent, the medication needs to be considered. That's all I've got to say about that. But you just may just want to put that to the side and keep that in mind if you do work with depression or anxiety. When you create a safe space for your client where they do feel like they're being uh, start again, where they know that they're not being judged. And in fact, it's an invitation for them to really open up and explore their vulnerabilities. Like, this is so powerful for a client to have that space and that freedom to explore the truth of who they are and say the things that society says that they're not supposed to say, and to really explore what it is that lights them up. When you can create a space like that, there's such trust and honor and integrity in being able to create that. And yeah, the results will speak for themselves if you can create that trust and rapport. So in my NLP training, we drill down into what is the emotion of anger. As I've already said, anger is that secondary emotion that follows powerlessness. Then once you understand what the anger is doing for the client, then you can focus your questions a lot more detailed, specifically into things like what is causing them that sense of powerlessness, what stops them from speaking up sooner. So you want to check in, if you were somebody who's working with the emotional triggers, what do those emotions actually mean? For me, when I look at judgment and hundreds of clients with judgment, they're always seeking what's right and what's wrong and trying to be, like that good girl and doing what's right. But according to whose values? That's the interesting thing. So I would be asking a client working through judgment to what's that inner dialogue? Where did they hand over their authority to others? Like, what's going on here? Fear is that illusion that we're not actually fearful of the spider, we are fearful of the stories that we tell ourselves. So, again, I would be looking at who they are in the absence of the fear, what happened to trust being safe in the environment. I'd be exploring all of that. Shame is, again, similar to judgment. It is about trying to measure up to other people's standards. I am wrong versus the guilt of I did something wrong. So we're looking at the stress and being pulled in two different directions to meet other people's expectations versus what do they want. And the guilt. Guilt is that I did something bad with a focus on the behavior. So there's a values violation here, and we need to check in. Why did they ignore their intuition? What's going on here? And sadness, I think this is the last one. Sadness is important to respond, an important response to loss, different to grief. Grief is a process rather than that singular emotion. So if you're doing timeline with sadness first, you just want to check in. What are the benefits of the sadness? What's going on here that they haven't let it go already? As a new coach, I encourage you to build your skills of confidence, do session swaps with other coaches, niche down, choose a topic that you specialize in, stretch yourself with a variety of different clients. But I would encourage you to avoid practicing NLP with your family Whatever you work through with them, it is likely you're actually entangled into their issues. And many new coaches find that family unintentionally don't value or understand what you're doing with NLP. So often this can discourage you from building your confidence. I would encourage you to recognize you are running a professional business. You choose who you work with. Your clients are not your boss. They need your service. You are your own boss. You get to choose who you work with. And so, with that, I really encourage you to build that confidence, niche down, know your messaging, feel confident in the solutions that you provide for your clients, and to know that NLP is really quite abstract. This is not paint by numbers. Each client is going to be different. Each progression of their soul's journey is going to be different. So, the structuring of a session is much the same as you move along, but the subtleties in people's problems when they've done a lot of work on themselves is where you start to really drill into your NLP skills to pick up that piece, which is where I love to work. I love to work with the clients who really want that thorough clearing, where previously nothing else has worked. Is like, no, I will navigate that labyrinth and help you get to the other side of that. Okay, we've covered an enormous amount in this one video. I am Claire Chancellor from Be Your Purpose Coaching. If you are interested in joining me in my next NLP practitioner or master practitioner training, you are more than welcome. I did my practitioner and master practitioner training twice. So I always encourage clients, if you love and adore NLP, to really taste different trainers' perspectives of it. Because truth be told, we are all teaching differently based on what's our values and what's important to us. So I hope that helps, and I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.